This is How to Buy a Business Part 2 with Brandon here. Excited to have you back.
Glad to be back, George. How are you doing today?
Last time we talked a lot about how buyers can prepare for actually starting their search to buy a business. We had a whole 45-minute episode on that. Today, we're going to kick off on when a buyer starts looking for businesses, how can they stand out in a broker's, hypothetically, CRM maybe, and really stand out so they can put themselves ahead of everyone else. So with that in mind, when a buyer decides they're ready to start inquiring upon a business, where should they be looking to buy businesses?
That's a great question. There's a couple different avenues. First thing I'll tell them is don't rely just on one source. So don't just fall in love with one platform, one brokerage agency. Understand your target. We talked about your buy box. We talked about, your debt tolerance, your EBITDA or cash flow requirements. Once you've got that figured out, okay, where do I source? Well, one, for good or bad, Biz Buy Sell has the largest volume in the country. So if you're not looking there, you're probably missing out on some opportunities. From there, there's a bunch of great platforms. There's DealStream. There's a bunch of different organizations you can look up. Businessbroker.net. Tupelo is a great example. And the beauty of Tupelo is it is broker fed directly and screened by you because you actually know the real brokers. Unlike other platforms, I hate to warn people, anybody can create an account, submit something, and it's considered a listing. So if you go through places like Tupelo, or for example, a broker-owned site like Sunbelt, or even Transworld to give the competition a shout out, there's a very high probability that's a much more greater chance of being a real listing that's been vetted and gone through a process than something somebody threw on another platform. But definitely start with websites. Get on their filters. It's for free. Don't pay someone to do that for you. That's absurd. And then secondly, the best part is to start on the ground. Get relationships with other brokerage entities and think about the region. Find out how far an area that broker may cover, or if they have an industry-specific niche like HVAC or, entertainment, restaurants, whatever. Knowing your buy box and then identifying the local people in the areas you want to work with. Because be honest, the best chance of getting the best deal is going to be knowing it's coming through the pipeline from the broker. And this is not an off-market deal. This is them just saying, hey, I've got 2 or 3 good buyers who fit the criteria to tell an owner. So when it comes to market, you're going to be in that first round of qualifications to take a shot at it. You don't want to be 8th, 9th, 10th in place. So getting a good relationship, starting the process appropriately will put you in position to have an actual shot at it and not just be finding out second, third hand.
I think there's something to really delineate here is there's on-market and off-market deals.
And that's a tricky subject.
Right. But I mean, if someone's buying a business, you're probably looking everywhere. I would encourage them to look everywhere. So what an on-market deal is when it's usually represented by a broker and they're publicly posting that listing is for sale.
Yes.
An off-market deal is when the business buyer is directly going to the business owners and asking them, do you want to sell your business? Right?
Correct.
So from a broker's perspective, I guess, of how to buy a business, are you encouraging buyers to do on-market and off-market?
If you have the qualification to do off-market, by all means, use your resources. The only concern I have for buyers doing off-market deals, especially novice or brand new buyers, if you've never gone through an actual deal structure or understand what language or what requirements, especially if you want to use SBA, you can maybe source somebody. That's great. But if you don't know how to put it together, you're going to stumble and lose that opportunity more times than not. And I think the biggest fear I see for off-market deals to people advertising belong to our service subscription and get those is they're not legit. And I'll tell you this too, from my practice. If the owner is not willing to sign an engagement agreement, but wants to sell and go to market, they don't really want to go to market. And they're going to be probably hard to work with. They want either an unrealistic asking price. They're not willing to give any guarantees or concerns. And that should be a red flag for you as a buyer. That being said, there's a lot of good things about using businesses on the market. They typically, like I said, been vetted, have probably have a proper evaluation to some degree. There's a good room for error there. And if you've never looked at ad backs, doing cash flow or EBITDA, and you're trying to figure out Main Street books the first time, you may actually pass up a deal you don't realize is even good, unfortunately, because you can't just figure it out or know how to appropriately start the discussion. And that's not always easy. A lot of owners are going to be skeptical too. Let's be honest. If you get 20 emails a day saying, hey, someone wants to buy your business, you kind of get worn down about it.
The hard thing with off-market deals is a broker puts in so much work with the relationship with the owner to prime them, to prep them. This is what the sale process is going to look like. These are the documentations that you need. If you're going the off-market route, that whole responsibility is now on you. You have to prime that business owner what's going to come and what you need to make the deal. So that the sales cycle is cycle to buy a business is generally very long. The sales cycle
It
to buy
is.
an off-market deal is even
Even
longer.
more, absolutely, it is.
Okay, so let's zoom in on the on-market deals here.
Mhm.
When a buyer goes to like BizBuySell or Sunbelt or Tupelo's marketplace and they inquire upon one of your listings, what does that look like for you on your end?
Okay, it can look wildly different, which I think buyers don't realize. Obviously, every listing platform, there you need to fill out your contact information form, name, email, phone number, all that good stuff. There's also a brief description there too. There's always a generic inserted one, but you'd be surprised how many buyers just send me information, generic send in, or just send me just tax returns. And it's like in any relationship, your first introduction, your first impression does matter. And too many buyers just don't think about that first impression and how it's going to come across, and don't also realize the volume that we receive coming in from different platforms and areas of interest. I spoke with two groups today, not today, I should say this past week, where I told the young guys, I was like, if you're going to searching, your first impression matters so much more than you realize in establishing proper connection. And if you're going to try and aim above your weight for cash flow and purchasing power, you really have to stand out and have something to be different. And I was like, we can get 400 leads in a week and a half, 2 weeks on $1 million EBITDA business. So your little email saying, I'm bootstrapping it and I'm a great young guy, that's great. But how that lead comes in is how it's interpreted. Same goes for, outbound emails to brokers saying, hey, I'm so-and-so with a search group looking for this. If you're, and we kind of hit on it last time, if your topics are so generic and so vague, you're just going right to almost my spam filter, it feels like. Because I know you're not serious. You haven't even thought about to narrow it down. Why I took the call from one of the groups last week, they were very geographic specific, very industry specific, and listed their background as younger guys, what they did to stand out, which actually lined up with the money they said they had associated with them, committed funds, and what their reasonable timelines were. It's like, okay, you guys are at least taking the general proper steps to get this process started. Let me help you take it a step further and just come in and meet with me. And let's have a real talk about how to build your portfolio to go out there and do something.
So for these businesses that are getting a lot of traction, you're getting hundreds of inquiries from buyers on like a weekly or what probably feels like daily basis. When you're looking at these inquiries, and you alluded to a little bit, how are you vetting these buyers to make sure that they pass the minimum threshold to move forward in the deal?
Great point. And this is where a lot of buyers also stumble too. They say, nothing's worse than an NDA that says, I have, investors as their monetary source on their financial form for like our NDA. Our NDA has an NDA and a financial form attached, as you know. We're not asking for bank account information. Most brokers don't want any of that. They just want a basic idea of what your capacity to perform is. As you said, are you qualified to look at this deal? We had an email from all the Sunbelt office owners today talk about how one person claimed they had X capital, but was backed by a certain search group that seemed legit. Good. I opened information. It didn't work out. But the point is, if you're going to say you have investors, make it clear who they are, and make sure it's committed funds. If you're saying I have investors in general, you're going to probably get turned down because quite frankly, I've done this for 13, almost 14 years. When I hear the word investor, 1% of the time, the investor actually shows up with the cash.
Mm-hmm.
So be realistic in what you're also targeting when you send that letter in and how to stand out financially. Show your professional background requirements. I see emails all the time. I want to get in the HVAC space. Do you have any HVAC background? No. I want to use SBA. Okay. Have you ever managed a company? No. Well, SBA is not, you've already lost a couple points right there because what you're saying you want to accomplish with the financing component does not align with your experience, the money you have on your sheet, and what you're inquiring on. That being said, I think we said earlier, a pre-qual letter is a great way to start to show some capacity. It's not the end-all be-all, but it's also a good start. Bankers don't guarantee, but they at least give us a blueprint of what your capacity can in a vacuum be. From there, we still have to decipher your background, your region, and what goes on if you are worth pursuing this deal. And if you're in line, because let's be honest, some deals, you may be the only one at the table. Some deals, there may be 30 people. And unfortunately, if you don't have a 90% of qualification when there's that many inquiries, you're just not going to get a shot at it probably. And I know that sounds negative, but it's true. This is the way it works. And owners don't want to see that either. Put yourself in their shoes. They don't want someone who isn't qualified to even be in the discussion in the first place and see their proprietary information. That's part of our job is to screen.
And so how that works in practice from the buyer side is they inquire upon the listing. They're probably going to get sent like a buyer profile and an NDA. The buyers should be taking the time to customize that buyer profile.
That's right.
Do you say like for that specific listing? So their experience, they're catering to that listing?
I would say have a generic profile already thought out and take some homework to think about that. And then if you need to modify it for the specific listing, why it should apply to you, I think that's an extra step you should take when reasonable and say, hey, why I think I'm a great buyer for this business. I've been in this space for 10 years. I have this experience. I have a pre-qual letter. Boom, boom, boom. That tells you right now, you also took a minute to look at the listing, the blind profile online, read it, focus on it, look for some key highlights where you might have some crossover utility. That gives me a little thought that you're taking the time to look at this. You're not just cash flow chasing on a website, submitting 5 inquiries on 5 different businesses. How you approach it does matter. I've heard, to add a little anecdote here, one of the young men said, well, I saw her on a podcast, you should just get the first 200 inquiries out no matter what. And I said, what are you going to do if your process isn't ready? What are you going to do if you don't know what you're looking for and you send 200 NDAs and you spend an hour per NDA per business you're looking at? That's 200 hours you just wasted throwing spaghetti against the wall. Scale it back, do a couple at a time, refine your process, see what's working, what's not working for you, kind of understand how the process even works to interact with brokers and other people, and then take your search, I would say, up a notch in volume. Now that you kind of figured it out. Because if you send out 200 inquiries, you're going to look bad 200 times at the very beginning. Better send out 4 or 5, 10 bad inquiries if you don't know what you're doing, figure it out. Then I would recommend take a stronger volume approach, because then you'll know what to do and how to execute.
I think that goes back to a lot of what we talked about in the first show about taking the time to understand like industries and like why you want to be a business owner, how much
Yes,
cash you have. Like if you're just throwing out 200 inquiries, like you probably haven't done that to begin with. All right, so let's do like the best case scenario here. A buyer comes
yes.
through and you're looking at their profile and you're looking at they sign the NDA. What does this look like where you're like, I got to get this buyer on the phone right away because they're the perfect fit for, a business. And I realize that it depends on the business.
It does. I think it falls into 2 categories. I get a strategic buyer coming in where their background, they identify the company right away, they identify themselves, what their role in the company is and what authority they have. Because sometimes it's the president, sometimes it's the vice president, sometimes it's the acquisition team. Identify, there's often a attachment they'll want to send that has like, this is what our platform looks like, or here's what our organization looks like, where we've bought, when we bought, how much we've bought. Okay, wow, great. You've shown you can do deals. You've shown you're willing to do them, you're not just searching, but you completed them. And I can kind of go look up these companies and verify they're real. I can figure out, hey, if you've got maybe 5 different HVACs under your operation, under your belt, I'm going to go Google those HVACs and see if they're even real or if they're just a one-page landing page with nothing to them. That's good. For an individual buyer, it's going to be a semi-resume, and I'm not saying go give me your full resume, but give me some highlights and points that make sense. I'm going to see either a business owner or high level of management for a long period of time, preferably with industry experience or in the realm of the industry you want to be in. And then next is a geographic designator. I want to know, do you want something where you're actually going to be? Because 99% of people are not going to move across the country. And then third, what's your actual target EBITDA or cash flow ranges to the capital you have available? If you're looking for 2 million EBITDA and you got 400,000 capital, it's not going to happen. Those two need to line up with what your purchasing power can be. And if you, like I said earlier, if you're going to have investors or you have search fund sponsors, identify who they are immediately, how much committed capital, and give me a contact to them very quickly to reach out to them and verify. Because in the day and age where everyone's got an investor and search funds are all over the place, the quicker I can help define that from you, if it's real, the better off you're going to be to get access. And the longer it takes, the slower it takes to get to you. It just does.
And to that point, like let's do the opposite of it. So a great buyer, has experience, has money, and then, taking the time to actually look at the listing. An exceptional buyer probably has experience buying similar businesses in the past. What does a bad buyer look like that just has their inquiry skipped over?
It's the classic case. Million EBITDA, management team in place, absentee ownership. I could spend 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week on it. It's the unicorn. They don't exist. And if they did, I would buy it. And if I couldn't afford it, I'd find someone to go in with me and buy it before I'd ever put it on the public market, I can promise you. It's also buyer inquiries like that only ask very specific, terrible questions. I just want P&Ls. I just want balance sheets. I just need financial information. Like I told the groups that came and spoke with me this past week, develop the relationship with the owner first. Understand why and how the business works before you try and work backwards the numbers. Because to be honest, every Main Street, we talk about it, the books are going to have issues. There's a lot of factors that go into how this company operates and why maybe it's had ups and downs, left, right, stalled. You need to get the backroom story. Once you got that, then you know where to focus your real energy after reviewing that in the sim, what to ask pertinent basic financial questions for and review to then understand, okay, do I want to make an LOI? Do I want to move forward? Or you know what, this really isn't structured well. It doesn't fit my background. I was hoping they did a little more of this, but they did too much of that. Take the time and make it clear. When you just give me generic samples that everybody copies and pastes and then the classic buzzwords, you're not sounding smart, you're sounding generic. And that's a bad sign.
Yeah, I think one thing here to like really delineate when talking to brokers is if a business has a lot of traction around it, a lot of
Yes.
buyers are inquiring upon it, the broker who's analyzing each and every buyer is going to be more skeptical. Let's be honest. If they
They
have
have to be.
300
They have to
buyers,
be more precise.
right. Now, if it's a business that might be more hairier than your average, the broker might be a little bit more aggressive following up with you to like get the NDA, ask if you have questions, things like that.
And that's fair. That's volume. But at the same time, like I said earlier, if you got $1 million EBITDA company, $2, $3 million EBITDA companies, you're going to get bombarded by a lot of very qualified people. At the same time, a smaller listing may not get as many inquiries, and that's a different approach. It's also a different buyer base too. And I think that's where buyers forget sometimes. They overstate where they should be playing in the field they're not in, and it burns them out. And that's why I say scale back, really know your target zone, and stay in that range. You're more likely to get responded to because of that too. I have no business buying a $50 million company. I shouldn't be talking to anybody about that. Same goes to some of these buyers. If a $5 million pre-qualified letter trying to buy a $15 million company, you're missing 60% of what you need. Like committed capital, like that's a problem.
One thing you touched on is getting to know the broker so you can get first access to deals. So how does this work in real life here?
That's a great way to start. So let's talk about this. I have no problem hopping on a call with someone if they take the right outreach and say, hey, I see you have X number of listings. I'm either starting my journey or want to kind of do something. You give me an honest timeline. You give me a reasonable reason to talk and say, can I have 10 to 30 minutes of your time? Sure. I have no problems, like I told the last person I spoke to this week, having a conversation with that, no matter your age or your background, because I would love to have a good buyer come to market prepared, do their homework so I can say to my sellers, hey, I've vetted this buyer. We spoke several times. He's prepared. He's been working to this goal. You're a really good fit for him. The hardest part I have is when buyers just outreach and want to schedule a call just to schedule a call.
Before you get to know them, right?
Exactly. Give me something why you need to have a phone call with me. Because if your whole goal is just to quickly scan and turn things over, or, my favorite words are, call me. You get anything, just call me. No, I haven't even spoke to you more than 5 minutes. And you're telling me to call you with my best deal. I don't need to be wined and dined. I'm not asking to be catered to. What I'm asking for is give me enough of your time to let me validate you, understand what you're really looking for. Because you maybe give me the classic buzzwords in the email, but let me get a little deeper down to the conversation and really talk about what you're looking to do and why you're looking to do it. If a broker wants to take 10 minutes to talk, 20 minutes to talk to you, take advantage of the time because you're going to learn a little bit more about what we're doing and what's really out there just from the industry insights than just looking on a random internet or computer screen to figure out what you see what's going on. We're on the ground. We're seeing it from both sides, whereas most buyers don't get to see the back end side of what we do. Developing the relationship, developing trust. And then lastly, sometimes you may not realize that I may come across a listing that you would not think is a good fit for you, but I may say, look, George, I know you wanted XYZ criteria. This isn't quite what you want, but the management structure is exactly what you asked for. Maybe you should come take a look at it. Now I'm giving you an opportunity to say, I said I wanted to do something. I'm interested. I'm trusting your professional judgment too. You signed an NDA. Maybe you should look at it. And it's the buyers that go, nah, if I don't have my box, I'm not looking at it. Mm-hmm. Okay. You've now told me you're either wildly naive or so hyper specific that what you want probably doesn't exist and won't be found, or at least not for the next 3 or 4 years. Because buyers have to realize what's available on the market is what's on the market. And it's not like shopping for a house where there's 500 of the same one all over the place. They're all going to have their issues. They're all going to be a little bit different, and they come in waves. So if you're looking to make an acquisition in that specific time frame, your variables open a little bit. And sometimes you'll find a better deal because that may fit what you may not even realize you wanted to be in. That might be a good fit for your skill set.
So how this looks in practice is you reach out to the broker to tell them, I'm interested in buying this type of business. This is my qualification, why I want to be a business owner, why I'm great to own this type of business. And this is my budget, quite frankly. That opens up the door to a conversation with the broker where you can dive deeper and to learn about each other a little bit more. Now, if we take this a step further, a search is a long time, right? A buyer looking to buy a business can be a long time. How does that buyer stay in front of you?
I think the best ones, what they do is either a quarterly or semi-annual email based on how long and how specific their timeline is. And honestly, just a phone call every now and then. Because I guarantee you, if you're on our network and I like you, you're going to be in our system for automatic updates, what comes up new anyway. Even if I don't call you right away, I've already got you in my systems to get you notification. Because sometimes we get stuff, it moves quick. I can't make 30 phone calls. Or, oh, my guys, they're busy working other deals. But the second you see it, you're going to know, hey, Brandon, good to talk to you again. I saw, great, come on, let's have a conversation. Or, what? I didn't think you would like that, but glad you saw it. Let's take a deeper dive. I know you're good to go. Let's get in the line. Let's go talk. Let's get moving. Because now I'm not waiting to vet you. I'm not waiting to get the NDA back. I'm not waiting to get the financial form back. If every buyer thinks every broker is going to remember every single thing about them 24/7, that's not possible. It's just not doable. And now automation, it helps a lot, but it's not a perfect business. And that being said, if you really are searching and you're not just daydreaming, asking for help once every now and then. Every 3, 4 months, send a quick phone call. Say, hey, here's what I've seen lately. Here's what I've done. Because if you're just saying, I'm just curious, I know the phone calls and emails I get from the same leads, from the same buyers that are always just curious. It's the same approach. They've done nothing. The buyers have called us back and said, hey, I am looking to do something. I had actually put an LOI on a business I found somewhere else. It didn't work out, but just want to let you know. Okay, good. That shows me you're still making a willful intent and want to do something. You're not just waiting for something to fall in your lap, or you're just daydreaming.
It's almost like quarterly or biannually you're sending like an update on your search. Like, hey, I looked at X amount of businesses, got the LOI in one, it fell apart because of X, Y, and Z. Just keep it on your radar here. Something simple like that. It seems like a lot of
And
people
yes,
aren't doing.
and just don't repeat the same email every time. Like, hey, my name is so-and-so, and I'm looking for XYZ and XYZ. Those are so generic. And when I've seen 3 of those in a row over a year and a half, you know what that tells me? You're not doing anything. And you've yet to change your criteria, getting 0 results. It gets circulated, trust me. It starts to get generic, you notice very quickly. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just give a little personal touch to it that makes you realize someone's actually done something. I could give you 5 names I see all the time that come through my email database. Hey, I'm so-and-so looking for this. It's like, you've been doing this for 3 years. Obviously, what you're doing is not working.
Okay, so let's take this. Let's go further into the process here.
Mhm.
We talked about in the first show, like how to prep yourself for your search. This last little
Yes.
bit, what we talked about for the last 20 minutes, is how to actually inquire upon a business and stand out, build a
Yes.
relationship with the broker and stay in front of them. Next, let's go into you've inquired upon a business and the broker is
Mhm.
now releasing information for you to review. Generally, this is caused a SIM, Confidential Information Memorandum, CBR, Confidential Business Review. Can you tell me a little bit about what a SIM is and what its purpose?
Absolutely. For lack of a better word, the SIMS is a marketing profile of the business with confidential information that is being released to you. That SIM will identify location, typically a recast of financials explaining what the cash flow or EBITDA number is on the blind profile ad you inquired from, and then a more detailed description, probably some company layout as far as structure or ownership percentages. If there's any red flags or issues, a good SIM will highlight those in advance and then present that information and what's going on. And then lastly, it'll have some other contact information for the broker, maybe some other information for you to follow up on. What is the whole point of that? It's very simple. It's to give you a bigger base picture of what's going on so you can look at it and realize, okay, I don't have a lot here, but I have enough now to know that where this business might be. Because it may say, maybe it's the state of Louisiana, and you're like, I only want South Louisiana. Okay, it's in Baton Rouge. Great, South Louisiana. Next page. All right. Is it got good management in place? What's the company structure look like? Any customer concentration issues? Boxes checked, boxes checked. Okay, so now go back to the broker. What's the next step? Like you said, I've gotten good information. Now I would recommend it's time to either schedule a call or meeting with the owner. If there's any red or real red flags, the broker has probably highlighted them, and he can probably explain to you now in a deeper conversation, hey, glad you reviewed it. Let's talk a little bit about it too and move forward. If you get the SIM and you don't read it and you ask a dumb question that's in the SIM, you just hurt yourself too. Because now you've shown the broker you're not even going to read the basic information you're being given. And that's a very massive red flag for those of you listening. Read through the SIM. It's going to do you a lot of good. And the broker and the owner spend a lot of time gathering information to get it. It may not seem that way, but it's being presented to help give you a much better picture to start. And if you're not willing to read it, you probably shouldn't be buying a business.
There's a big discrepancy in SIMs and what they look like in the market.
That is very true. And that's very fair.
So some brokers will spend a lot of time to build a very comprehensive SIM. Others will treat this as like a one page. So when a buyer gets a SIM, gets first access to the SIM, how should they be reviewing these different documents?
Say for a lot of substandard ones, it's also based on what the owner can provide the broker sometimes. For example, I've been asked for like a SIM on a laundromat that didn't have financials because the husband died and the wife was not keeping bookkeeping. So people are like, well, why is there no financials? Like, because there's none. And it says in the ad, this is a asset-based deal for an operating laundromat that needs an owner-operator. This is not one that says you can, and it says you cannot SBA finance this. So there will be times a substandard SIM is also hindered by what is available for the broker and what the owner can realistically produce to put into it. But for example, a good SIM will have a good geographical breakdown, a good historical breakdown of the company, a good recast, preferably if there is available, company dynamics outlined as far as roles and relationships of key employees, managers, a flow chart, and then likely some form of customer identification and product identification. What do they make? What do they do? And kind of what is their background of what they make off each general subsection for the business? Like, let's say you're a products manufacturer. 60% is here, 40% is here, 10% is here for quick math. Give you an idea of what the products and key concentrations are. Like you said, a subpar SIM, sometimes brokers are just lazy. There may not be anything on there worth a dang. It may not be It may be just a one-page recast. There may be cases where there's other information missing. You are limited. Just remember, though, too, even though you signed the NDA, there is sometimes information owners don't want revealed right away till they've met you personally. And that could be for very specific proprietary bits of information or strategic information. And even if, let's say, you're a real strategic buyer in the industry, that owner may have told the broker, look, they can have some basics, but I don't want XYZ released till they've spoken to me in person because I just cannot afford for this to get out until I've vetted it. Or worse, I know who I don't like in the industry and I need time to go through this process with them before I trust them. It doesn't always mean that you're not being entitled to it correctly. It's that there are owners that are very, very, very protective and don't want to give everything out the first time as well. So take it for a grain of salt. It doesn't mean it's going to be a bad deal. Just the better the sim, the more questions you can answer and decipher up front and have a more intelligent conversation more quickly and speed the process up. With a weaker sim, just understand that the data collection may not be ideal sometimes. And that may be the broker's fault. It may not. Because trust me, if you've ever dealt with business owners, sometimes getting records is extremely hard.
I guess to this point, you have your buy box as a buyer, right? When you're looking at a sim, you're almost having like, I think of it as like a split screen where you're like reviewing the sim and then the buy box on the right side, and you're just like checking off to make sure, like, does it make sense for me to like move forward in this transaction?
Just understand what your parameters are, understand what you're looking at. It may not be perfect. Just know there are times that if you do a QV, that cash flow may change. One recommendation I gave to the buyers I spoke to the other day was just assume 10 to 15% of the cash flow may not be there upon review because of either a QOV, there could be accounting issues. Remember, not all these businesses have great bookkeeping and accounting services lined up. So the broker's working off the P&L he's given, the tax return. I've seen P&Ls presented for companies that showed $400,000 net on a towing company. The tax return came in negative 25. So I'm just saying, I've seen some wild stuff, and sometimes you are limited what you can really calculate based on what's provided and at the time of year. If you're at the end of the fourth quarter or at the beginning of the next fiscal year, that could be an issue too, to getting really good representative data based on what's going on. Because sometimes people finish their books out and it's not what they thought, or they're behind, or any number of issues. But compare side by side, start checking. The biggest thing you're going to find out is look for any really good either ownership or key employee data. I think that's one of the key things you want to go identify quickly, because when you have that first ownership meeting, you can ask, tell me how you got here, but tell me how your day-to-day operations run. So now you should have a ballpark idea from the sim. It should be lining up. If it starts to deviate a good bit and the owner starts going, well, I'm doing all this and I'm doing all that, you're going, well, this is not what the sim indicated that you were absentee. It sounds like you're a lot more involved than you were. You saved yourself all the time reviewing everything now. You've got an idea what you really might have in front of you.
What's not in a sim?
I would say full tax returns. You're probably not going to have any proprietary licensing certificates or anything of that, like hard proven proprietary data. Like say someone manufactures HVAC parts, you're probably not going to get designs. You're probably not going to get real intricate customer concentration lists with the actual name. You might get something with redacted amounts, but you're not going to know, and you might not even know key employee names. There may be manager one, manager two, depending on the broker and depending on the level of confidentiality needed.
So is it safe to assume buyers should not be expecting to see tax returns in a sim? They shouldn't be seeing key customer names and employee names?
I would say yes. And honestly, you don't need to know the exact customer name right at that time. You just don't. That shouldn't be an issue. It should really be, does the recast look like it makes sense? How in-depth is the recast? Or is it just random generic expenses, random generic add backs? Like how detailed is it? Look for those key factors too. You're going to get a good bit on the recast based on how much data is provided to the broker. That should give you a pretty good ballpark. But if your first question is, well, I need tax returns, you don't know how the company's really running. You have a ballpark idea now, but you should go listen to what the person running it has to say. So when you do your dive in, you know where to look for possible other issues too. God knows every tax return is also done differently. So you may want to get some more information to find out what deductions might make sense. Or owner may say, yeah, all that's, I told the broker, I run my boat, my other insurance. Like that's why he highlighted that $30,000 add back for auto expense. Yeah, that's actually all my personal trucks. Here's the, it's on the end of tax return, but you don't need that very second to verify that. That's a due diligence question that takes 30 seconds. And if you need that to make a decision, you're not ready to buy business.
I think this is a good segue is when a buyer is looking at a sim, it's totally expected from the broker side that they're going to have questions.
We want you to have questions.
So how should a buyer be presenting their follow-up questions to you about the sim? Now I'm going to prime this question with what we see a lot of buyers do in errors, and then NDAs released, they'll create like an email to the broker that's saying, I need these 25 documents, these questions. That's just a bad way to start.
Yes.
So the sim's been released to a buyer. The buyers reviewed the SIM, actually read it. They have questions about the deal, which is totally acceptable and expected. How should they
Mhm.
be presenting those to you?
What I'd recommend is based on the timeline and availability, why don't you present the broker? If you've got 10 key things you're curious about, let him see if he can even answer those questions first. Then, after that or before that, schedule time with the owner to have a call or in face meeting and just kind of let them talk. Don't bring nitpicky questions. Nitpicky, itemized questions don't do good right now. You need to build, and like I keep saying, you need to build a foundational understanding of the company forward and backwards. Internal accounting issues you can answer at a later date, maybe pre or post LOI. But if God forbid you send a broker a 40 question due diligence question after reading the SIM, that is absurd. You don't know what to ask yet. You really don't. And normally they're all generic questions that some are already in the SIM that you could answer yourself, or B, a discussion with the broker just saying, hey, I saw there's a lot of add backs. Before we move forward, can you give me an idea what these add backs truly are if they weren't itemized? Yeah, sure. Here's his auto that he pays for. He has 2 trucks or an F-150 and this. A broker should be able to snap his fingers pretty quick and recall those main issues that you may have questions on. Other than that, it's a case where that's a great question for the owner. Let's meet him in person or have a call and discuss that. Or, you know what, I have that information, but until the owner releases it to you after meeting him. So I recommend you write these questions down, save them. Let's go have an in-person or, like I said, a Zoom call, whatever. Get to know them a little bit. Let him feel you out. I'm sure he'll release once he gets to know you. You seem like you got your stuff going on. You're asking the right questions, but let's have a conversation first. But if you ask very detailed due diligence questions right then, it really jams your process up.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look good from your end. You're probably not going to meet the owner after that. You come off as like nitpicking the deal to death before it's even been
It's just
opened.
unrealistic. You don't need that to make a decision at this time. And if you're trying to skip all that process to make a decision now, that's even more concerning because you don't know what you're looking at. We had a deal for a $14 million company just last week. My broker, Chris, was talking to a buyer. 2 sharp guys, big corporate backgrounds, done some M&A work, got the SIM, sent 40 questions in Excel. Hey, we need these answered for the meeting. Chris is like, well, 1, I'll see if the owner wants to consider answering these. He hasn't even met you. And 2, half of these, if not all of them, are all post-LOI due diligence questions that don't make really a rat's ass, excuse my language, about the next few steps are. So why don't you just, I'll see if I get a couple answered that are reasonable, but the rest are going to need to wait. There's really no reason to go forward with these right now. There just isn't. And it's not stonewalling. It's not pragmatic.
So from your side, how's the best way for them to ask the questions?
Yes. Email, Word is great. It's easy for the owner if they need to fill anything in themselves to reply and put their comments on. If you want to do PDF, fine, we'll make it work. No big deal. Excel, that's fine too. It does, as long as it's in a tangible format that can be transferable and written on and understood. And honestly, I want you to have 5 or 10 good questions because that means you read the SIM, you should have questions because it's not going to give you exactly everything you need. That being said, you want to get those basic questions answered early to then have the next step, which is have a discussion or have a discussion even prior. And it may be the broker may say, look, these are all great questions. I can answer some, but because of the technical nature of this business that I'm not in the industry, let's just have a call and talk about it because it might be easier to explain some of these over a phone call than trying to write a dissertation for each one based on and some of them are complex questions, which is okay. I'm not discouraging questions. Write down everything you have a question about when you're starting and make sure it gets answered as a buyer. That being said, on the first date, do you want someone pestering you with 55 questions about your background? No. You're just trying to feel them out individually. Is this someone I want to interact with at all? But when you're getting, pigeonholed on question after question, it wears down the process and it loses goodwill, which you need goodwill for when there will be speed bumps.
So let's try to put this into practice here. So a buyer's looking at a SIM right now. They have the SIM on the left, their buy box on the right. The first pass through, they're making sure that the SIM, this company, checks the boxes to their buy box. Then the second pass through of the SIM is probably when that buyer is going to create their list of questions. And then you're going to want to narrow that questions down to present to the broker thereafter, probably like 10 or less of the most critical questions to move forward in that transaction. If a buyer wants to move forward in the process, so they've asked you questions through email or phone call, and they're ready to move forward in the process, how do they do that?
Often what we do is after we answer the basic questions or had a call, I'll give them a day or 2 or 3 to, unless they want to contact us. Hey, look, take a look, think about what you heard, go back to your questions, take a moment to digest what you heard, and see if it's something you might want to do further. The next question is, yes, okay, let's get maybe a stronger list of questions, some more pertinent information you need to do, and let's start talking about what your thoughts are. I'm not asking for your entire deal structure. I'm not asking for like XYZ, I'm going to put this much down. No. Just, does this make sense for you? And what are some more basic questions to give you a formulation of what strategy for your LOI, which is leading to the next step. Okay, because if you're going to put an LOI in place and you want certain key members or you need knowledge of certain key employees or practices in place, We need to identify who they are, what's going on, and what their tenure is, what that's going to be for you, what your ability to work with them is going to be. Identifying those major key sets how you want to, like, think of a blank LOI. What parts am I going to need to be answered before I submit this? And you start going through that process, and a broker can walk you through that. Transition timeline. What do you think? Well, honestly, I've never been in this industry. I might need a little bit longer than usual. Okay, well, here's traditional timelines for training and transition. If you go over that, this might be something you want to consider throwing in for the owner for consideration, because he's not going to work for free for a year. You start having those kinds of conversations, those kinds of deal preliminary structure to get, do I need information here to make this decision before I submit anything? Sometimes buyers say, I'm great, I want to submit something. You don't have to by any means. Just understand your deal structure and how it applies to this deal before you, or what your buy box transition look like fits, and can it fit into this deal structure? Or, hey, I got a big red flag. I don't have licensing in this company. I saw in the sim there's multiple, master plumbers, for example. How long have those guys been there? I want to identify which ones have been around the longest, maybe which one is the most skilled to be my either equity partner, or I need to get an employment agreement on, or who brings the most value in that position. So if I structure my which we get to LOIs, I'm assuming coming up next is the next question, how to build that foundation into your offer. You want to get questions to build your foundation to your offer. Or if you need to have a second meeting with the owner to understand some more, that's perfectly fine too. Just know if you come to the meeting again, have fresh questions and good ideas. You don't need to be recycling, because now you're just looking for validation to move forward, not, I can't make my mind up. There's a fine line there. A lot of buyers tend to stub their toe at this point, where they're asking questions that are non-whimsical. Well, what if the chef quits? You hire a chef. And the real question should be, do you know the profit margin for each of the dishes in your restaurant? And if not, why not? And if you do, which ones do you think would possibly you would even consider dropping or adding? Or have you tried to add? What didn't you like? That will tell you what maybe the scale and capacity of what the kitchen staff is, the creativity and the thought structure behind it. Or maybe the owner may say, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to do anything different. There's room for you. Here's what I would do if I was you. Now you've got insight how to formulate your offer, what you can do, what potential is. Does the price start matching the expectation?
And are you priming the buyer to start prepping of your LOI almost questions before they meet the owner? So they've reviewed the sim, they're ready to move
We're doing
forward.
that from day one. We're
Yeah,
doing that from day one, which
Yeah.
buyers don't realize. Everything you say, I'm going to analyze. And that's not a mean thing. You're telling me cues to who you are and what you're looking for. And in the back of my mind, I'm always making these notes. Okay, this guy said he needs help. He needs help. He needs help. I got to start helping the owner realize this is going to be a longer training and transition than maybe a strategic buyer who could come in and bring their team and their knowledge in right away. We think about those things long before, and we've had talks with the owners about what general timelines are, but tell them they will have to be flexible based on the type of buyer and the offer you get. So we're always putting those pieces together in our brain, how to best help find the proper structure for that and get the deal you want done too. It's not one way or the other way. This is a marriage coming together, and you have to find the right combination to make it work.
I think this is like another really key point, that the broker wants to sell you the business. They want you to move
People
forward.
forget that every time.
They want you to move forward in the process. When you're asking like 50 questions, right, when the sim's released, you're priming the broker. This is going to be a tough sale for me to do. Like, a good chance you're not going to buy the business because you're not hitting these minimal thresholds. Effectively, every buyer that's inquiring, from inquiry all the way through, like, the broker wants you to buy the business. They're trying to help you, to position you in the best light possible for when you meet that owner.
That's right. We want to save you time and effort. What we're giving you information and guiding you to is to help you run the marathon in a right pace. We don't want you to overload yourself and burn out early. We don't want you to start too slow and can't make it up. We're trying to help you run it at the right pace so you have gas in the tank to finish it. And you'd be surprised in deal making how many buyers and sellers don't realize that. There's a proper pace to run and a proper pace to set things up appropriately. And we're helping you do that. We're your coach. We're saying, hey, slow down in mile 5. You're running too fast. You might want to double check before you put the LOI together. Or, hey, we're at mile 10. You're running a little behind. You need to pick up the pace here if you want to get this done, because timelines are going to start getting crunched. The holiday season's coming up. The fiscal year's changing. Lenders are going to change requirements. All these things we have, myself, have over a decade experience in. There is a very fine line to walk. Every deal is different, mind you. Every buyer and seller are different, and we have to weigh all these factors. But our goal is to get you to buy it, I promise you. But how you go into the dance matters too. I can't bring a horse and lead the horse to drink the water, right? I can't do that. But if I give you the road and I give you the reins and I got the water there waiting for you and you follow the trail, it's finally up to you. Do you want to do something? And that's okay. It may not be the right fit for you. We're never going to begrudge you for not moving forward on a deal. Just understand how you conduct yourself may indicate how many more chances you get to look at other deals too.
I want to give you the last words here, because I know you always go pretty deep into all these different
Yes, we
sections
do.
here. And we're going to have, episode 3 where it goes into the broker, buyer, owner meeting and how to structure
Mm-hmm.
those and LOIs and so forth. But today we really talked about how to structure your inquiries, stand out in front of brokers. And then when you have access to a SIM, CBR, or a teaser, how to analyze them, ask your questions,
Mm-hmm.
and move forward in the process. So, Brandon, I want to give you like the last words here to kind of like summarize, because this is where we see so many buyers fail. Like point one
Mm-hmm.
from inquiry, and then point two is when they're, finally get access to information and they're just botching it here. So, last words are balls in your court.
I'll say to everybody out there listening, it's okay to say you don't know what you're doing or you need advice. Too many buyers want to come across as they've got it already figured out, and 99% of them don't. I would tell you out there, be authentic, be organic, reach out, have open discussion. It's okay to not know what you're looking at. It's okay to not understand every aspect. It's okay to say, I get this, but I don't know that. If you're going to come across and portray a different image, it's going to be sniffed out pretty quickly. And if you want good advice, talk to multiple brokers. Everyone's philosophy is different. Someone may not agree with my philosophy, but we've done a lot of volume at my office, over 850 plus deals in our tenure. I'm giving you a lot of sample size to understand what really got other deals done and what didn't. So ask questions, get advice, and don't be afraid to say, I don't know, or what's the next best step. Let that broker guide you, because regardless or not, he is the gatekeeper to the information. And if he's not going to release it, it doesn't really matter what you want. Work with them and work in synchronization with them when you can. Doesn't mean you can't have your opinions, your own thoughts, and your own concerns. But remember, this is a communication street. The better it is, the better you're going to be. And the more authentic you are, the more likely you are to get a deal done too.
I think this is a great place to stop before we pick up with How to Buy a Business Part 3.
Part 3.
Appreciate the time, Brandon.